Thanks very much for having me up, or down, should I say, whether it is, horizontal if you like. As you're probably aware, I'm Ian Brown, past member of the New South Wales Avicultural Society. Graham dragged me along when I was about 19, I think, the first one, because I rescued a whole lot of his lorikeets from a dirty big carpet snake.
You did too.
Remember that one?
That's right, I moved in a Tamil, and so did a diamond python.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, he didn't know what to do with it. His wife Susan at the time didn't know what to do with it. So I grabbed it, put it in a fish tank and looked after their birds for a while. Anyway, that's when I met Graham. And I came along to the New South Wales Avies for quite a few years. And remember the times when it was standing room only at Belmore, wasn't it? Yeah. Back in the old days. Times have changed, and obviously, that's one of our challenges we have these days is, having a market for our birds and the people keeping interest in it and getting young people interested in the birds is one thing that we're finding difficult. The internet and all that sort of stuff, kids tend to find something different to do. As a result of being a member of the Avies back in the day, and I gradually got an interest in a whole lot of different species of birds. I originally started off with parrots, just Australian native parrots, and at Pheasant's Nest, where I grew up on the farm, I might have had, 40, 50 aviaries, I suppose, at one stage there, with quite a wide range of Australian native parrots, from cockatoos down to neofemers, and always had a lot of success. Moved up to Queensland about 21 years ago now, and totally different climatic conditions and all those sort of things made it a real challenge. And when you're keeping a mixed collection, there's lots and lots of challenges, but I think the rewards sort of outweigh the challenges in a long way compared, considering what I'm allowed to keep or what what I've been able to keep and breed over the last 20 years up there. One of the big challenges we have out in Queensland is the National Parks and Wildlife, as you like to call it, with regard to limited soft-billed species, which is really what interests me at the moment. Maybe 12 species of soft-bills we're allowed to keep, as opposed to, I don't know, how many have we got here? 60, 70, who can count the number of species we're allowed to keep here in the way of soft-bills? We've got 4 species of wren, 1 species of honeyeater, a wattle bird, a magpie, I think we can keep banded plovers, and what else? Oh, spotted pardalots. Has anybody got any spotted pardalots? So, as I move on, we'll go through the challenges first, and then at the end of it, we'll show you all the rewards of having all these birds, all these, the species that I can have. Obviously, challenges are the types of aviaries that you have for these birds. I keep fruit pigeons, soft-bills, finches, and parrots. So basically, everything we get except for raptors, we're not allowed to have them in Queensland anyway. So I have quite a number of aviaries at the moment. This would be the main aviary that I have currently running. It's 160 square metres, this planted aviary here. Attached to that there's 5 conventional parrot type aviaries. There's 6 smaller finch type breeding flights. We have a big rat problem and carpet snake problem up in Queensland, so I run a lot of electric fences around everything, as you can see. All the iron right around the perimeter of the aviaries is buried in the ground up to 600 or 700 millimetres. Electric fence running along that as well. 1/4 inch wire for about 500 or 600 mil. Once again, more electric fence wires, and then finally a nice bit of a cap over the top of that, so that if the power goes out and something does happen to run up there, they're going to have a bit of trouble getting up. I mean, I could probably just go and have that and have no issues, because the majority, all the above ground or above wall netting, obviously, is all nylon hail netting. I'm finding that really good, really cheap to use, and it saves damaging birds like you wouldn't believe. I don't have any problems with birds hitting the netting and knocking themselves dead, because they just bounce off it like a trampoline. Young birds, when they leave the nest, the bigger pigeons, the fruit pigeons,
what about outside birds trying to get in?
Yeah, they bounce around on top. Before I worked out how to stop the hawks from getting in, the hawks would bounce around on top and try and tear at it. Never ever had a hawk take a bird. Have lost a couple of finches through butcher birds, being able to hit it, but you're going to lose them in steel aviaries anyway, unless you use 1/4 inch mesh all the way around.
Yep.
And prices wise, you know, running everything on 1/4 inch mesh to keep the mice out, the snakes out, and the butcher birds out is prohibitive as far as the, you know, considering the size of aviaries that I do keep. This is what I use now to deter the hawks. Alright, that's a 300mm stainless steel, they call them gazing balls. Alright, so you can see how reflective that is. You can see the roof there, and you can probably, if you went up close, you can see me just there, standing there, taking a photo of it. Very reflective, and hawks will fly in, see their own reflection, and think there's another, and think that's another hawk, and this is their area because they're all territorial, and the new hawk will just keep going. And since I started off initially with 1 ball, and for a while it worked, and then we got a couple of young sparrow hawks and a couple of young goshawks come in, thinking that they'd be able to mate up with that one bird that they saw, which was their own reflection. And so they hung around a bit and bounced around on the aviaries again for a while. Never really lost any birds, but a few of the birds actually got stressed a bit. Then I thought, well, you know, if they can see one bird, if I've got 2 balls, one at each end of the aviary, they're going to think there's 2 hawks in there, that's a pair, I'm getting out of here, and that's exactly what they do. I haven't had a hawk land on my aviaries in 18 months since I've had 2 balls up. So, pretty lucky. The other thing that's good to have around is a few, and I mean up to half a dozen maybe noisy miners, because they tend to chase hawks around a lot as well, and they let the other birds know, or let my birds know when there is a raptor around, and my birds will go to ground or hide in the bush, and there's plenty of bush in these aviaries at the moment. So if you want to get rid of hawks, they're about $98 a piece, and you can buy them from a mob in Brisbane. Come and see me later and I'll give you the details. Obviously, being in having a big aviary, you're going to need somewhere to catch the birds, because there's no way I could wander around inside this aviary in particular and catch any birds out with a net. You know, I've got that much bush and that much tree, and they'll be ducking in corners and whatnot. So 3 metre by 3 metre aviary, basically built inside the main aviary. That is also the only piece of shelter in the 160 square metre aviary. Everything else lives out in the bush, under the trees, under the leaves. When it be pissing down rain or boiling hot, they're just out in the scrub. If they don't survive, they're not strong enough, and they're not going to be good breeders in the long run. So everything I want, when everything gets fed in this aviary, the door is always open so that the birds can go in at will whenever they want. If I want to catch something out, I used to stand outside the aviary with a piece of string and wait for them to go in, pull the door shut. That worked for a few times until they realised that if he stands there and holds onto that bit of string, if he stands there, I'm not going in that door because there's this big bang if I do. So I'll stay away from it. So then I put the string going inside the other walkway, and that worked for a little while. And I got sick of this waiting around for them to come around. I knew they had to come in sometime, so now either on the door or just above the door at the moment, just a funnel trap. So I close the door, I'll put a bowl of water in there, close the door in the morning, the little birds go through the funnel trap, can't get out because they don't know how to fly back in the end of the funnel, and I just walk in there in a little 3 metre by 3 metre aviary and catch what I need. Piece of cake. So I don't go chasing birds through the scrub and whatnot. So the aviary is pretty well highly planted. Just this one. Obviously, natural perching. I don't like any of these dowels or anything around the place, so it's all got to be natural perching as much as I can get. Plenty of growth, plenty of shrubbery, all sorts of different plants, grasses, grevilleas, bottlebrush. The big thing at the moment is sandpaper fig tree. It's fruiting like crazy at the moment, so the wampoos are hoeing down the sandpaper figs, and the silver eyes are going the figs that are ripening up. Also, they're dropping on the ground and bringing in a lot of fly, like vinegar fly type bugs, so the wrens and the other things are eating all this sort of stuff. Once again, it's just a really nice, well planted aviary. And nylon netting, you don't even see it hardly sometimes. It's invisible. And because there's no structure, if you might have seen from the first photo that all there was 2 posts, there's one there, with a big round steel cap on the top, just holding the netting up.
So the netting's fairly tough?
Yeah, it's very tough, yeah. I've got some new aviaries I'm building that I can walk across. It's that good, so. I wouldn't walk across this one now because some of this netting is probably 35 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's stuff I got from Thilmy. And the first aviary I built with nylon netting was down in Barrel, Middleborough.
Yeah.
And it's the same netting. So it's over
That's
35
amazing.
years old now.
Twice the length
Yeah,
of life that they say
exactly, yeah.
for that.
And I can still push on it and pull on it, and the only thing that's been able to get through it is rats. And finally, over years of learning about rats and finding what they're getting and doing that, you've got to know your enemy to control your enemy, and I've managed to do that now, I think.
So cockies, that like the sulphurs and that, or corellas wouldn't chew?
We don't get them. When we do get, we get a few on the aviary, and I've never had them, never noticed them pulling through or trying to chew it or anything. I kept princesses and all the lorikeets and whatnot in that aviary at different times, and never had anything chew through. The only thing I haven't put into the nylon net yet is fig parrots because they can chew. I'm just not game. I'd love to have them in the big aviaries, but I'm just not game at the moment. We'll get to that later on. So keeping a wide variety of plants, because you've got a wide variety of birds, helps out. The fruit pigeons, the wampoos and whatnot, for instance, eat grevillea flowers, which is something I didn't realise. You know, they eat the soft tips off the lily pillies, that sort of thing. So they're not actually eating fruit all the time; they're eating vegetation. And I think that's one of the reasons. One of the things that we've been finding with the fruit pigeons is people keep them on a totally fruit diet, and they're becoming, have diarrhea problems and that sort of stuff. So dehydrate because they're totally running all the time. Since I've been watching them, I've cut that down, and we'll talk about that when we get to the feeding side of things. Security cameras inside the aviaries for special species. Obviously pointed at nests to decide to work out what's going on, particularly with the wampoos, and we'll go through some of those issues later. Also got security cameras on the outside so I can see what's happening at night time around the outside. That's how I found out where the rats were getting in. I'd done everything I could to stop rats getting in, what I thought, and one night, first night with cameras on the outside, find them running up a star picket, which is about ½ a metre away from the aviary itself, running along the barbed wire and actually balancing on the barbed wire and jumping across onto the capping and then running up the netting, up the top, get under the roof because there's a double roof, and because they're out of sight there, they can take all their time they want to chew a hole in, and they do that every time. Fortunately, never lost any birds due to rats, unless you call the snakes following the rats in, taking the birds. Could be due to rats and stuff, but that's what had happened. In the same night that I saw the rats jumping from the barbed wire onto the aviary and over, you caught a glimpse of a carpet snake following the rats in about 2 hours later. So, yeah, things you do, challenges and whatnot that you find. One of the second planted aviaries is the old above ground swimming pool that we had on the place. We put that in when we first moved there 21 years ago, and the line lasted about 10 years, and we decided to put a new in-ground pool in, and I told my wife I was turning it just into a garden. And it worked for a while, until she saw the framework going up. She said, "What do you do?" "Oh, it's alright, I'm just trying to keep the wild birds away from these plants." But it's a nice look, it's a lovely little aviary. It's nearly 5 metres wide. In the middle, it's probably about 3.5 metres high and about 9.5 metres long. I just converted it, just chopped it up, chopped the end off and put a square end on it and framed it all up. Everything on there was second-hand material. So it came up really nice. Really thickly vegetated at the moment. Lily pillies in the background here, there's odd grevilleas in amongst them, some grasses. bottle brushes for the honey eaters, and it's a really nice, very presentable aviary, because I can sit up here on the step and just sit there and watch stuff happen, and it's really nice. Inside the back end of it, obviously, once again, I'm not going to be able to go in there with a net and try and catch stuff out, so I'm going to use feed station just with the drop door, and the similar things happen with the drop door as what I did with the door, the pulling the door closed down the back. I'd sit there with a bit of fishing line, wait for the birds to go in, because they were used to me sitting there until the bloody thing goes bang all the time when you drop the cage front down and catch them in and then buzzing around. So they wouldn't go in there when I was sitting in the walkway, And so then I'd drill a hole in the door and stood outside with a bit of fishing line, and next door neighbours would see me up against the wall like this, wondering what I'm doing, and I'd get a sore eye from looking in this tiny little hole. And then I eventually did the same thing as I did down the back. In the actual cage front door, just made up a funnel trap, just a funnel. The birds would go in and obviously have trouble coming out the funnel as they would normally do, and then just catch them out as you want. But having it nice and planted, and the odd rock in here for the spinifex pigeons to stand on and things like that, just ended up being a really nice aviary and breeds quite well. The birds feel nice at home. Also had a few suspended cages over the years, as everybody does these days with parrots and whatnot. Basically just attached them to the back of that aviary recently. They were down on the back of the big aviary originally, because I've got some development going on down behind that big aviary now. I moved these up here, and if you can design a framework that'll hold up the suspenders, you've got nothing going to the ground. So there's nowhere for rats to climb up anyway. Electric fence once again running around on the corro that's already in the ground, and it's just a cantilever type of setup, and each of those cages will pull out, slide out if I wanted to, to replace them, or just take them and get them out of the way. And there's a few different things in all of those at the moment. Easy access. This is only sort of temporary access at the front of these at the moment, because these doors were actually in the walkway of the bigger aviary. So you could go in and you wouldn't have any hassle. So at the moment I'm just a bit careful and a bit wary of what might get out the doors, but I'll eventually, at the end of this breeding season, have access through the walkway of the inside of the swimming pool aviary itself. Another few more just suspendeds hanging around just for like odd birds and whatnot. Never raised these for any breeding or anything, just for holdings, spare birds when I needed to. The conventional aviaries down the back, these are the ones that are attached to the main 160 square metre aviary. These are your conventional, 1.8 wide, 5 metre long, 2.4 metre high, conventional parrot aviaries. And what do parrots like to do? They like to sit at a perch at that end, and to sit out a perch on in the shelter end, and you've got all that wasted space. There's nothing going on. Because, even though I love parrots, to me parrots are just a picture hanging on the wall, because that's all they do. They just sit there all day on the end of the perch and don't do much else. They'll go to their food bowl once in a while, have a feed, and go back and sit on the perch and preen themselves, or look there and sit there and go to sleep. Whereas your finches and your softbills, they're forever moving around looking for feed to keep themselves going. So I had all this space, and I wondered what to do with it. How could I utilise that space without being too much of a detriment to what was going in there? And of course, when you've got softbills and finches and whatnot, you need brush and bush for them to hide in, and hopefully some plants and whatnot. And what's an eckie going to do? Tear the shit out of whatever you put in there. So, come up with a solution. The bottom quarter of the aviary, mesh it in with 2-inch square mesh, and put all your plants inside there, and cylinders for brush, and breed superb fairy wrens in there, along with eclectus parrots, or crimson finches in the same aviary as the superb wrens. So I'm actually using a bit. I can have more species in that same space. That was one of them. Of the 5 aviaries, I did it with all of them. it made life so easy. Currently, these are just full of grasses that are just overflowing the place. So, you know, the crimson finches are breeding like crazy in them. The fairy wrens have been using them a lot. You know, they're in and out all the time, and they can just. I've seen, you know, fairy wrens don't even stop. You know, they'll just fly straight through that 2-inch stuff. But the eckies or the gangangs or the crimson, you know, the northern rosellas or whatever, princess parrots, they're not going to get through into that to destroy it. So it's a really good way of using extra spay. You're making up, you're doubling or tripling your aviary use, you know, in doing something along those lines. Because they're in with big parrots, obviously you don't want them eating all your live food so much, even though it's good to have parrots that eat live food. You know, if you've got a pair of gangangs in this area here, and fairy wrens that you want to have living all day long eating mealworms and whatnot, there's got to be something left. So you've got to be able to, you know, the fairy wrens can get in here, eat what they want, and the gangangs can't get in and eat it all. I always give the gangangs a bit up on top, but mainly the gangang seed and everything's up on top at the time, and the fairy wrens can get in and get their soft foods and, you know, live foods and mixes and all that sort of stuff. This old shed was the only other thing that was in the backyard when we bought this property up at Burpengary. It was nearly an acre, and the only thing in the backyard was that shed and about 8 cocos palms around a dam that used to be down the back. So got rid of the cocos palms, and recently I filled in the dam and I'm building new aviaries on that, but we'll show you those in a minute. So you're just your conventional 6x9 gal shed, or whatever it was. Actually now it's only 3x9, isn't it? Yeah. Or 3x6, something like that. What was that? Yeah, 3x6 metre zinc aluminum shed. Cut the end out of it, made up some aluminium tubing frame, 1/4-inch mesh. Once again the electric fence is going right around it. A bit of shade over the top because it gets pretty warm. And just framed it up inside, put some doors in, feeders, a bit of a walkway down along the back, and I've got myself a quick, easy 6 flights for, you know, 2 pairs of finches per flight, or a pair of Turks and a pair of finches per flight, you know, something along those lines. So nice little, they're 1 metre wide and maybe 3 metres long out to the veranda off the end. So they get a bit of outside stuff, they've got some inside stuff. Works pretty well. You know, plant in a big pot, got some pit grass growing there. Automatic watering, drain for the automatic watering runs down here, so you have a hose running into there to keep it watered, and the rest of the water runs outside. So everything stays pretty dry in here, and just a little trickle comes out of the automatic watering every day to water the plants that are growing in there. Medium is these the inflorescence, which is the fronds that hold the fruit. When they dry out, once the fruit's all dropped out, they dry off and they're really hard and they hold their shape really well. These are foxtail palms, I've got a lot of those growing around, so they're really good. Turn them up the other way, hang them in your aviaries or whatever, and they're perfect nesting ports for finches. You know, there's plenty of branches and plenty of room for them to grow and nest and whatnot. And even some of the other types, I can still put them in the baskets, and they're Alexander palm fluorescens, so they'll, you know, plenty of space for the birds to put their nesting material in, etc. Obviously with a big mixed collection, feeding's a real issue. I mean, I've got that many things, so my wife got sick and tired of me making up food and washing dishes in the kitchen. I decided I had to build a bit of a room in the end of my garage. I got a double garage down the back, one of the 6x9ers, so I 3 metres by 4 metres, built it in, timber framed it myself, lined it. One of the daughter's boyfriends at the time was an electrician, so he ended up getting me a second-hand air conditioner, so that made it really handy. The fridge and the freezer, microwave. This is where I keep all my food made up and medications if I need them. All your fruits, frozen stuff up in here, and frozen stuff here as well. So all the different, you know, peas, corn, and carrot, and all that sort of mixes. Times have changed. I've gone through a few different methods of feeding out stuff these days. So I do a lot of these frozen tubs now. So I'll mix up, you know, a month's worth of chopped up fruit and veggies, and freeze them in the individual Chinese food containers. and I know one container goes in that aviary, one container goes in that aviary, however many I need on a particular day, and gets fed out. And I just put it out frozen. The temperature up there, stuff thaws out gradually during the day, and that way it lasts a bit longer too. And I've never known the stuff to go soft and mushy like you'd think it would. And it doesn't seem to. I don't go and buy crappy or get given crappy fruit from fruit shops and whatnot. I just buy what I eat myself. So I could, if I wanted to, I could take one of those to work for lunch and eat it for lunch. Yeah, and I've done that before. Because in each one of those, and I'll show you in a minute what goes into those, but having all this stuff handy in the one spot saves a lot of backwards and forwards up to the house and back in, and having it all there ready, you can just pull out of the fridge and start making it up as you want, you know. And in this one here we've got red mixes here and the fruit and veggie mixes there, dried figs diced up, any of the fresh fruit that I would have needed at the time, your finch mixes, your dry powdered mixes, etc., all frozen fresh figs in there, nectar blocks. I'll show you some of those in a minute as we get through. But bits and pieces of stuff that you need. Stainless steel benching, dishwasher, you know, hospital cages, etc. Everything you want to use is all there. So I'm not bothering the wife up in the house, and that doesn't happen anymore. So that's another story. Because I keep a lot of soft bills, another one of my passions is growing live food. So I grow my own mealworms these days. I've got my fly boxes for growing maggots. This is just an old timber bookshelf that I use with a fly screen door I made up to go on the front of it, where I put on my fly pupae, or they're not fly pupae, the young maggots when they're starting to grow, and I harvest from there. Go through some of the things later. So that's how I feed them. I wait for them to start pupating. Excuse me. And that way they're sort of, you know, they're pretty nice and white and clean and cleaning themselves out. Because there's nothing worse than giving, you know, half-grown maggots to birds that are going to swallow a bit of crap that's still inside the maggot. So we try and keep that out of them. I breed a few crickets. I haven't had much success because I've stopped using this box. I gave it away a few years ago when I got rid of all my soft bills, and now I'm getting back into it. I wish I hadn't given that away. But I'm trying different methods now. So that was pretty handy, you know, having your own live crickets and whatnot and growing them. It's a lot cheaper than going out and buying them every week. Wood roaches are another good source of protein for a lot of the soft bills, and they are so easy to keep. You know, just a bit of pine shavings in a tub. So long as you get some of that fluon, which is the white, it's a Teflon paint. You can paint around the top of the inside of your containers, and the cockroaches can't climb out of it. Alright, it's very slippery for some reason or other, and they just got no. So you can have open tubs of cockroaches in your bird room, and these guys can't climb out of it. I also use the same tubs when I'm feeding them out in the aviaries. So yeah, they can't escape and go everywhere, and they're still, you know, contained in the area for feeding out. White ants, sort of, it's getting really difficult up our way to actually go and find enough termites to feed your birds through the whole season or through the whole year. So I've been, you know, thinking about it and sort of growing my own termites, so to speak. So I'll get I'll go out and find the smallest termite mounds I can find, something that I can get out in a whole shovelful. Right, so it's a whole mound there, and stick it in a bucket of wood chip or mulch, you know, just the forest mulch that you buy from, you know, get from the local tree loppers. Plop the lid in that, or pop the whole nest in the bucket, put it in a tub of water so that it doesn't, they don't go and raid your house. Give it a couple of months, and you'll be just pulling out handfuls of, and that's what I've done there. Pull out handfuls of mulch full of termites, and that just keeps cycling itself. It works pretty well. I've now got it set up in a couple of bathtubs because I can use a bit more, and that helps well with the whole thing. Moth traps, obviously live moths are great for your birds. I made this one up just out of a ceiling fan and a couple of bits of stuff that I found, and there's a black light above that. The nets are just the fly nets that you use over your hats when you go out in the bush, so you don't eat flies, and You know, you can drink your beer without the body getting flies into your gob. This one was actually available at Bunnings there for a long time. So I bought a couple of those at one stage. They'd come with a little stainless steel wire basket hung on the end there, and the whole idea of those is that insects would get in and the basket would be so close to the fan that the fan would dry them out and kill the insects. I didn't want dead insects, so I just got rid of that basket and hung the fly net again on the end of that. Just pull that off every morning, go out and release it into the aviary. Birds are loving it. All these ones here at the moment are lawn grub moths. So all the neighbours around me are happy that I keep birds because they've got really nice lawns. Because the lawn grubs aren't living in their lawns, I'm catching them all before they get a chance to go and breed in their lawns. So that's good. External black light with a ceiling fan on the outside wall of the big aviary. It comes on a like a timer at night time. Insects get attracted to that, get sucked in through the half-inch by half-inch into the feed station area. Automatic live food next morning, you know. For the wrens and the softbills, I do a lot of supplement with some obviously commercial products if we can, because you know sometimes you might run out of live food, but you want to make sure they're actually, you know, they've got something else that they can eat and whatnot. So the wren mix I use is a mixture of Vetafarm Insecta Pro, Paswell Softfinch food mix, bit of Madeira cake, bit of cheese, grated cheese, mix it all up into a nice, you know, moist but not wet, pasty sort of a mixture. And then I'll mix that with some maggots and some mealworms, and you get that little concoction there, and all the softbills, all the parrots, even seen the fruit pigeons having a go at this stuff too. So there's a lot of good nutrition in it, and obviously the birds are enjoying it, and I'm doing pretty well with some of what I've got. At one stage there I had a lot of lorries, and so I was feeding a lot of your normal lorry wet, your lorry dry stuff. Seed, it's just some white millet, but we use a lot of the frozen French white millet that we can get up in Queensland these days, and a good quality finch seed mix. Bugger all sunflower at all through my place. None of the bigger parrots get sunflower at all. They're all got a good one, just a small finch mix. I couldn't be bothered buying too many different mixes. So, all little seeds, parrots eat little seeds in the wild, they can eat little seeds here. You don't naturally get sunflower out in the bush, so why would they get it from me? Pellets is another good thing that I've been transferred a lot of birds over the years, especially with the fruit pigeons. I know I can go away for a weekend and the fruit pigeons I know will survive and live quite happily because they're eating a mixture of pellets. These ones being the Vetafarm NutriBlend ones, the coloured ones, and the previous ones were the Paradise pellets. So I'll tend to do a mix of both nowadays, because sometimes you might not be able to get the Paradise pellets, sometimes you might not be able to get the NutriBlend pellets. At least that way I know the fruit pigeons are eating a bit of both. A lot of the parrots eat them too, which is what they're designed for. But I tend to feed mostly the fruit pigeons and whatnot on the pellets. I breed a few scarlet honeyeaters. I was pretty lucky with those to be the first person in Queensland to breed scarlet honeyeaters in captivity, and so I make up a nectar mix for those, and it's a mixture of the Wombaroo lorikeet honeyeater mix and brown sugar, and depending on the time of the year will depend on the ratio of Wombaroo to brown sugar. In summertime the Wombaroo tends to get pretty sticky and tacky, so I'll use less Wombaroo and more brown sugar in the mix. In winter when the honeyeaters are breeding, it's cooler, so it's not going to get sticky, so I can put more Wombaroo in the mix, and there's more proteins and more mineral, more nutrients in the Wombaroo to maintain the chicks that the honeyeaters are rearing. I'll make up a 2 litre bottle of that, so there's probably 500 grams, maybe say at the moment, this time of the year I've got 200 grams of Wombaroo and 300 grams of brown sugar mixed in 2 litres of water, and then freeze it in ice cube truck. So I'll pull out each day 1 ice cube per honey eater. I've got a couple of other birds now that eat nectar as well, in the way of soft bills, and so I'm just using 1 block per bird to do those too. So I can have 6 months worth of nectar made up in my freezer if I wanted to, and not have to, and just pull out enough each day. My neighbour's looking after my birds while I'm away on this trip, and he's got a list of what he has to do, and he'll just go to the freezer and pull out 3 nectar blocks into that block tray and 3 into that tray, and those go in those aviaries. And I'll show you how I do that with the neighbour too, as far as feeding out. This is one of the fruit and veggie mix that I use. So there'd be 17, 18 different types of fruit and vegetables in that. I make, as I said earlier, I make up, $60 or $70 worth per month in one go. So that might be 20, 30 kilos of fruit and veggies. Chop it up, dice it up, pack it up into Chinese food containers, put it in the freezer, and I can pull 1 out a day, goes in that tray, another one goes into that tray, another one goes into that tray, which then go out into the aviaries. And just let it thaw out itself during the day. Because there's pellets in there for the fruit pigeons, they're supplementing themselves with that. So I don't go and use copious quantities of fruit mix because they don't really need it, and it was only giving them diarrhoea originally. So a lot of trial and error, and slowed down a lot of things, and it's working at the moment. So I breed a few fig parrots, so obviously they're going to have figs. I got onto a mob one stage. Used to buy these diced up figs for the caking, the bakery industry, and I'd get a 10 kilo box of diced figs, I think at the time for 25 or 30 bucks. Alright, and if I went and bought 10 kilos of these things, for 200 or 300 bucks, so what do you do? Fortunately you don't have to go through too many of these. I do collect a lot of native figs too for the fig parrots. I collect as many as I can. When I see a tree that's got loaded, I'll just collect as much as I can and freeze them. And then just when I'm feeding each day, or if I make up a few weeks worth of containers for the fig parrots, I'll just put a handful of native figs in that, and they thaw out during the day and they all go well. This is the frozen green seed, which is a French white millet that we get. There's a couple out at Lowood that actually sow a whole paddock and harvest it for us, and they actually freeze it as well. Put it into tubs, freeze it up, and once a year they'll bring in 2 or 3 pallet loads into Brisbane, and all the Queensland Finch Society members will come and buy what they want for the year and take it home and freeze it. I know the Hunter Club, they normally get 1.5 pallets of this stuff sent down to them as well. I don't know whether any more. Do you guys get it too?
Yeah, it
I don't know.
Comes down a bit? Yeah.
Yeah, they come down to Sydney too.
400 times more nutritious than dry French white millet. So because it's green, it's still got all the nutrition of it growing. Once it's dried out, all that nutrition's been sucked back into the plant, back into the ground, and that's when it falls on the ground, or they harvest it as dry seed. While it's green and growing, all the nutrients and all the energy and all the proteins and whatnot are still in the seed. Once you freeze it, it doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. And they've done a lot of testing and whatnot of it, and they believe it's around 400 times more nutritious than dried French white millet itself. We use it, I use it sparingly. I'd probably go through 30 or 40 tubs of this a year, maybe 1 a week. But I mix it up with greens and grains and a tonic seed and some soft food mixes, and I just make up a couple of, maybe 10, 15 kilos of it at a time, and put it back into containers and freeze it. I've got a few freezers running. That's probably where my electricity bill's gone. Just bucket it out when I go to feed, cart it around each of the individual aviaries. I think there's 26 feed stations at the moment at home. So doesn't take me long to do it really when I'm doing it. Pretty good. One thing I've noticed over the last couple of years is that birds love, especially finches and softbills, love live flies. And I was having, I'd go in there and I'd take a tray of live flies and let them out, and they'd fly up and you'd watch them fly outside the aviary before the birds got a chance to eat them all. So I had to try and come up with an idea of how to keep them in the aviary so the birds could still get them. So these are just the diamond wire, but a really fine diamond wire mesh draw out of those. You build them yourself, you buy them at Bunnings. Those shelving kits that you can buy, you can just buy all the drawers separately. You can buy whatever depth drawer you want for whatever slide, whatever frame that you're building to put them in. People use them in their sock drawers and their undie drawers and whatnot in their wardrobes, for those sorts of things. So what I'll do is I'll just put a piece of core fluid on the top of it to seal it. I'll screw and glue it there, put a couple of hooks on it, and I can just go and hang that in the aviary. Cut a hole in the bottom, in the corner that's away from the sunlight. Okay, so if you imagine if the sun's coming up there, I'll put the corner in this far away that the access is. Because what are the flies going to do? As soon as they come out of their tray, they're going to want to head to the light, which is away from the door. So, because the birds have got to be able to get in and get them and eat them. Just a perch hanging out the side, the birds will land on here, go inside, jump up, catch all the flies they need, and come back out. And the first things to go for these days that I've noticed, as soon as I put flies in there, is the black-throat finches, then the crimson finches, and then the scarlet honeyeaters will go in there, and the silver eyes will go in there and chuck down what they need. But at least they're not getting outside and going outside the net, so they'll stay in there longer, the birds get to pick and choose when they want them, and I've got no issues. And to get them in there, I'll just get one of these Chinese food containers with the brood that I will use to grow the maggots in, because that's what the flies blow in. I'll have the lid on it and just cut a little, a lip or a flap slot with a Stanley knife in the top of it, so you can flick it up, slide it into the fly box, leave it there for a couple of minutes. The flies will go in to try and lay their eggs in it, and you just put your hand in and push that little flap down, and then you can pull the whole tray out. Walk to the aviary with a container full of live flies. They're not going anywhere because they're enclosed in the Chinese food container. Take them in, slide it in the hole, push it up one end, flick the lid off, take the lid back and do the next lot to go to the next aviary. And that way the flies will fly out when they want to, into there, and the birds have a chance to get every fly that basically goes into the aviary. And I don't have flies buzzing around the house and annoying the barbecue and all that sort of stuff. I came up with this idea because I can just remember sitting on the lounge out underneath the pergola watching the birds and forever doing this. Where are all these freaking flies coming from? Oh shit, I don't know, no idea. And it's all stopped now since I've done this. Because that swimming pool aviary, this is where this one is, it's right next to the pergola where the lounge is, and I can sit back and have a beer now and not worry about having to do this all the time, because the flies aren't escaping the aviary. When I go away, I was having issues with how my neighbour, I've got a really great neighbour, doesn't know a thing about birds. Old bushy, grew up on, had a banana plantation and all that, retired in town on his block next door to me, and always showed an interest in birds but didn't know anything about them. And anyway, he said, I said to him, any chance you could feed my birds while I go, because I've got to go away for a couple of days, Oh, I'd love to do that, yeah, that'd be great, So I had to come up with an idea of how he could feed the birds, how I feed the birds. Alright? Because that's what you want to do. If you go away for any time, you don't want somebody coming in there and feeding your birds, oh, maybe these guys need that, maybe these guys need this, when, no, they've got to have that, and they've got to have that. Because that's how he would, that's how I would have done it. I was going to feed them this. So, just some sheets of A4 paper laminated with circles printed on them. Each circle represents a bowl. There's a list of what everything is. Okay, so WM is Ren mix, VM is veggie mix, FM was fruit mix, LW is lorry wet, and there's a couple of other bits and pieces as you go along. So I just go along and draw with a whiteboard marker how much I wanted of each in each bowl. So he'd come in the morning and he'd put all the bowls out where it says there's a bowl to go. So as you can see, there's 2 bowls there, 2 bowls there. You know, there's actually 2 bowls there. They're not being used at the moment. There's only one big bowl here for that big aviary. And we've got an empty bowl here, so we don't need that bowl. Doesn't have anything in it. There's a bowl and there's an empty spot there. Okay. So he'll come along. He'll sort the bowls out like that, and then he'll look at it and he'll say, "Oh, there's half a cup of lorry wet goes in that bowl there. What have we got? 3 honey eater. That's HM. So that's the honey eater mix. So there's 3 ice blocks goes in that one. So what have we got down here? We've got 2 spoons of veggie mix at the time, and a fig, that sort of thing. So he knows what's got to go in each bowl, and each bowl lines up with an aviary, number 11, number 10, number 9, number 8, etc. And anybody that doesn't know anything about birds can come into my place, read the ledger, know where it is in the freezer or the fridge, and put it in the bowls and put it in that aviary. I went on a 4-week trip up to Cape York. We lost 1 Gouldian finch. And I was breeding. We had all the fairy wrens that I could keep. I had honey eaters. I had all the fruit pigeons. I was home because I might have forgotten to do something. But because he had that list of stuff to do, he didn't forget it because it was all written there in front of him. He knew what exactly had to go in. So it made it really easy. And then I went and we did a 9-week trip out to Kimberley, and I don't think we lost anything in 9 weeks. I think I came back and there was aviaries full of babies, because we went in the middle of October, and he managed to bloody well feed everything just right and didn't lose a damn thing in 9 weeks. So, I mean, that's what I would have wanted to do myself if I was home, but it was really good and a simple, easy way to do it. If you've got somebody that needs to look after your birds, do something like this. Gives them a bit of assurance and a reassurance that they can do what you think, what they need to know they need to do. All right. Once again, that's another tray of them. So as you can see, if there's only 1 tray goes into that aviary, you can only put 1 bowl there because this is blank. Pretty simple. And then you get the rewards. All these challenges, all these different things you do allows you to keep so many different birds and so many different species and have so much of a good time with some of the birds. So, a number of parrots I've had in the past. I had quite a good collection of foreign lorries. So these are black caps. Bred quite a few of those. Vicious bastards. The only bird to ever fly out of one of those small doors into the walkway, fortunately. But all he wanted to do was tear my nose off and drew blood and I can remember one night I could hear this commotion down in the bloody aviaries, and I had night lights in the walkways, and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and I could hear these lorries, these guys going off their nut. So I thought I'd better go down and check out. I went down, opened the door, and went, oh shit! And they'd opened their bloody nest box and were out in the walkway. Flying around, having a good old time flying down with the light. Oh, shit. Bloody things. Just had some yellow bibs for a while there. Lovely birds. Goldies, lorikeets. Not many of them left, if any, now. I think they're just about all gone, are they?
There's a few guys, there's about 6 blokes I know with them, but
not
in the last year,
yeah.
well, Jordan Lewis, I talked to him this morning, he's got 1 pair that laid 1 fertile egg, and that's the only fertile egg out of all these breeders at the moment. Nothing in 12 months.
The unfortunate thing about having all these foreign species that we're never, ever, unless we're going to get new genetic material for them. So we've got to be really careful and really, we've got to work together, to breed these species. Otherwise, they're going to be lost forever. And even down to the little brown finches, that people don't want. We've got to keep them. Otherwise, we'll never have them one day. very lorikeets. These are in the big aviary, so they were lovely birds in the big aviary, you know, with all the wildflowers, or the, you know, the grevilleas and whatnot flying in there. Just magnificent to watch them flying around in the big aviary. And bred really well in that big planted aviary, you know, constantly breeding, you know, 3 or 4 chicks in a nest and having 2 or 3 clutches in a season. Just really good because they were actually having access to all this free range stuff. You know, extra food on top of what I was giving them, native stuff, you know, natural stuff. And it just made so much of a difference to the birds themselves. So yeah, I breed quite a few. Oh, probably my favourite parrot at the moment, red-browed fig parrots. I started off with these probably 8 or 9 years ago. Started off with 2 pairs, paid a fortune for them. Had a few issues at the start. I think I bred 40 of them, so did really well. Went away for that long 9-week trip, so before I went away they were getting ready to breed and I didn't want to have my neighbour worrying about them, so I gave them, you know, gave a pair to a mate down here and a pair up the coast, and I think they bred a couple while they were away, while I was away, so that was good. So I've now got a couple of pairs back, so they're both sitting at the moment. So, but they're the most glorious little birds. If you haven't seen them in the flesh, they're one of the best little parrots you could ever have. But I tell you what, that thing will destroy you. These are the toughest bastards around. They bite like shit. There's a couple of days old, and yeah, probably 24 is that now. And that's when after they've fledged. The only issue with these that I've found so far is because they're on such a fruity, figgy diet, their crap is really sticky and shitty. And as you can see, right there, that ball there, attached to a toenail. That ball there, attached to a toenail. I think there's a ball there, attached to a toenail. And that's what happens, you know, they're in the nest and they're picking up all this shit and it's building up. So you've really got to pull them out. Check your birds every couple of days. You know, just squeeze hard enough and you'll break that off and it'll just slide off their toenails. Put them back in. I haven't been able to get away from that. It's just the diet, obviously, and because they do crap a lot in the nest, you know, they're not like soft bills, and then the parents will take the poo sack away, you know. But yeah, cracking little birds. Eckies, this pair was probably the last. Well, these are the last pair I had. I've given them to some friends now. I had them for about 15 years up in Queensland. I got them after I'd moved up into Queensland, because once I wasn't allowed to take my own eckies from New South Wales up into Queensland. National Parks wouldn't let you do it. So I had to palm them off to friends down here. Managed to find some up in Queensland, so I bought some. Parent raised every chick that they ever hatched. And that would have been, I think, in the time I had them, in the 15 years, I had maybe 45, 48 chicks. Parent raised every one of them. So every chick came out. Now, who hand rears eckies?
Lots of people
Yeah,
do.
a couple, yeah. How dark are their males' beaks? How dark are they when they fledge? You know, still pretty dark and brown and whatnot. This pair here, that was the day they fledged. So there's 2 chicks here, the day they fledged. And look at how good they are when you get parents raising them in the nest. You know, in that same aviary, I'd have superb blue wrens breeding and crimson finches. And I've got some photos on my computer of baby fairy wrens sitting in between the edges. That's amazing, you know. Gang-gangs, I was really lucky with this pair of gang-gangs I had up there. I had them for a few years and they bred every year for me. And in the same aviary I was breeding splendid fairy wrens and pictorella finches. And they were beautiful. First day they fledged, look at that. I mean, parent raised, gang chicks, absolutely spectacular. This was a result, the brush in the back there was a result of previous experiences with them. They'd come out of the nest and they just go bang, hit that wire and go, you know, lucky I didn't lose any. So yeah, all the brush up the back there, just above the the caged in section, the bottom where the splendid fairy wrens were nesting. Never had any damage issues or anything with the gangs. Had a few Swiss parrots over the years, and they're a really nice bird too. I mean, you know, if you haven't seen swifts, they're so underrated, and yet, you know, they're so endangered in Tasmania. But I know guys that are breeding hundreds of these at the moment in captivity. And
Did you breed them in
yeah,
Queensland?
just once, which was really frustrating because they were in this big aviary, and I had 3 pairs in this big aviary because you colony breed them, and one pair went to nest, and I got a couple. I think I ended up with 3 chicks out of the one pair. Made around the corner, in a 2 metre long by 900 by 900 suspended, with 3 pairs of swifts in it. Bred 30 odd birds in that same season. That's frustrating. Jammed in a tiny little friggin' cage, and here they are in their own natural forest. So sometimes it works with some birds, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, it's what you learn over the years, you know. It might have just been these pairs of birds that weren't that crazy on it. I want to get them back again. I haven't got them at the moment, but I'll definitely. I've got my feelers out for some pairs from Tasmania. Excuse me. And yeah, I'll have them again next season. One of the things I'm really concentrating on and passionate about is pure normal neophemas. I've only got Turks at the moment because I haven't got enough room to have any other species, because I've probably got 50 odd of these at the moment at home. All pure normals. I've got one strain of pure normals that have got orange bellies. And people think, you know, well, Turks, all pure normal Turks are like this one. You know, well, pure yellow, but there is a colony in central New South Wales that have been around for about 80 years that do carry a bit of red in their belly. Currently 9 separate genetic lines of pure normal Turks, and I'm breeding them pretty well, and fertility is excellent. I've got 6 chicks out of 1 clutch just fledged this week. I've never seen 6 Turks in a nest, and I didn't think they'd all last. These are the northern subspecies of crimson wings I had for a while. A lot smaller than the ones you'd probably get out west out here, over the ranges, but lovely little birds, a bit different in colour to the ones you get down here as well. Red caps, underrated parrot, you know, one of the most underrated birds in Australia. You get tame ones of these, they're just stunning, bloody colourful birds, eh? And they were really good parents too, really good parents. Under my soft bills, so I've had all the finches, all the wrens just about, except variegated. So these are the superbs. The hen bird. And bred, I don't know, 30 or 40 of these in 5 or 6 years that I've had them. Splendid wrens. This is the West Australian one. Notice it hasn't got any black on its back. I've now got splendids again, and I was under the impression that mine were the normal West Australian ones too, but no, they're not. They're black backs now that they're coloured up. But that's alright, like black back hens are easier to get, because I haven't been able to get the West Australian splendids for, you know, in the last 12 months that I've been looking, I haven't been able to get them. So, unfortunately. Probably bred 20 odd of these over the years that I had them. A little bit harder to breed than the superbs, I felt, but yeah, still beautiful birds. That was the hen, and that was a nest. You can see they had different coloured eggs inside them. All emu feathers and cotton wool in the brush. Probably my favourite of the wrens is the white-winged wren. Only because I bred 70 or 68 or 70 of these guys in a few years. I had one pair bred 31 in one season. And that was a pair that I had in an aviary that I ran out of room to take their young ones out, so I left the young ones in with them, thinking, yeah, you know, if Dad kills a couple of young boys, well, it probably won't be so much of a problem. But no, they're not. Totally opposite. The parents would go and mate, she'd lay, hatch the eggs, move on and start building another nest, while all the previous nest young ones would feed these young ones. And these young chicks grew so fast and quick. They were out of the nest in 2 weeks, because they had 4 or 5 foster parents, their previous nest siblings, feeding them. I got to a stage in that swimming pool over where I had 20 odd white-winged fairy wrens. One coloured bird, and all the rest were uncoloured. Even the males, none of the males even coloured up. Eventually, unfortunately, the hen burned herself out after, so what was it, 31 chicks, and she passed on. The cockbird never took another hen, and I had unrelated pairs, and I tried pairing them up, and he just bashed the shit out of them. So he never took another hen, and not one of his sons coloured up really while he was in that aviary. As soon as I moved him out, because one bird started to colour up and you could see them starting to bicker, so I thought, oh well, it's cheaper for me to pull him out and leave these guys here. Once I pulled him out, young cocks started to colour up, but they never fought with each other. I think because they knew they were brothers, I suppose. But I had 2 or 3 other pairs too, so I was able to farm out unrelated pairs. And do you think I can get any now? Cannot find a white-winged wren for sale, or anybody with them to sell them to me, after I put, maybe 30 or 40 pairs on the market over the last, up until about 3 or 4 years ago. Nobody seems to be able to do anything with them. I don't know what it is, why I could do something with them. Maybe it might have been just my birds that I had. Unless it was my husbandry, and I'm proud of it if it was my husbandry, because I've done pretty well with them. But yeah, they are the bluest of blue things you've ever seen. Absolutely cracking birds. She was an angry shit. She used to stare at you when you come in the aviary, especially when she had young ones. You can see her tail's bent there. But the cockbirds are dating parents. They're just really cool, and won't let anything else near them, especially anything blue. So I wouldn't have tricoloured parrotfinches or anything with blue on it, cordon bleus or anything like that. These guys, as soon as they see them, they kill them within seconds. But they got on with anything else that wasn't blue, which is fine, except young Goulians. If a young Goulian came within 2 metres of their nest, that young Goulian would be dead. Had a few issues with those, but I'd still rather have them. And they made their nest totally and wholly and solely 100% cotton wool or kapok. Never put any grass or anything into their nests. Don't know why. Maybe because that's what they liked. Maybe the brush was nice and fine enough for them to be able to do that. Always had 100% cotton wool. There's a couple of day-old chicks in there, or 2 day-old chicks, or whatever they do. Grow so fast. 2 weeks and they're out. A few silver eyes a few times. I've got them back again now. Lovely little bird. Scarlet honey eaters. They're just cracking birds. As I said earlier, I was probably the first person in Queensland to breed them in captivity. This is the very first chick that was bred back about 8 years ago now. Actually nested in a grenadier weaver nest, but they filled that hole from the bottom all the way up with coconut fibre, and that was really good. So that was it coming out of the nest. And this is one of the other nests that they had later on. Work, please. I'll go back. There's a cockbird coming in with a fly, feeding a couple of the young ones, regurgitating some nectar, and then taking away the poo sack. Stuff you see that you don't get to see in the wild. The fruit pigeons, and normal, like normal seed-eating pigeons, like the green wings. Spinifex. They're really lovely little birds. And notice they've all got long crests on them because I've got nylon netted aviaries. They don't bash their heads on steel net. Fruit doves. Bred a lot of purple crown fruit pigeons. If they didn't nest in the trees, they nested on the ground. And I've got pairs that constantly nest on the ground nowadays for some reason. That's a chick, first day fledged. Alright, that's 14 days old. 14 days from hatching, and that's out. Fully developed wings, fully developed flight feathers, and can fly with the rest of them. Absolutely incredible. And can land on a perch when it wants to. And bugger all on the rest of its body. And then it'll take another 3 weeks to get as big as parents. It grows so fast. rose crown fruit pigeons. Not as prolific as the superbs or the purple crown. Nevertheless, I still bred quite a few of these. The superbs or the purple crowns, I think I bred 60 or 70, I suppose. Yeah, and the wampoos. Probably the best bird that I've ever had, I reckon. Probably the rarest bird that I've ever had. Probably the dearest bird I've ever had. And I've been lucky enough so far to get 7 birds on the perch. Oh, sorry. Go back. Start. Yeah. They're this big. They're a huge bird. Yeah, huge bird. Not as heavy as the big top knot pigeon, but probably head to tail, probably a little bit longer than the top knot. But yeah, pretty special to have them.
You're right.
And lucky enough to breed them, and because I had cameras on all my nests, because I needed to know what's going on, because I've lost so many. There isn't enough husbandry notes out there about these things. I've been trying to keep records of how I breed mine, or how I've bred them, and when I've bred them, and what I've done wrong the next time when I've lost chicks, and all that stuff. One day I'll put it down on paper. A lot of it's up here, unfortunately. But this is one of the chicks that the parents raised. So it's 1 day old, probably 3 or 4 days, 6 or 7, 8 or 9, 17 days old, and off the nest. And yeah, pretty happy with that. Yeah, spectacular little birds, well not little, spectacular big birds. Weavers, I've had pretty good success with some grenadiers over the past. They're all good. And then a number of the finches, so some red-faced parroties, pictorellas, mask finches, that's the normal masks, crimsons. Done really good with those this year. Probably got 20 odd young ones there at the moment. It's a female. Diamond firetails. When you're in planted avies, you can take some really nice photos when you want to. McGillivray subspecies red-browed. McGillivray again. Lesser red-browed. And the ones right up on top of Cape York. Really different bird when you compare them side by side on the perch. White-eared masks. Pure normal Gouldians. Fortunate enough to have a good colony of pure normal black-headed Gouldians. There's a couple of redheads in amongst them. And the odd yellowhead. But all the ones I have in my main collection are pure normals. My grandson, 8 years old, came to a finch meeting with me or finch sale with me one day and said, "Oh, Pop, can I have a pair of birds?" I said, "Your mum gave you the money, you can do what you want with them." So he bought a pair of yellow-headed Gouldians. And the guy that bought them, we bought them off, assured me they were pure, normal, yellow-headed Gouldians. And there's a white-breasted, yellow-headed Gouldian in the aviary at the moment, so I'm not happy. Anyway, black-throated finch, that's the black rump Diggles variety. Black rump double bars, they're from up Northern Territory, the Kimberley region. Red-eared firetails from Western Australia. Probably, they're spectacular birds when you see them in the flesh. Absolutely glorious. And that's the end for now. Until I started building again. So, you can remember over here is the original big aviary, the big 160 metre aviary with the 5 flights on it. Well, I get 2.8 metres high. And that looks pretty big as it's going along. And this little video should work. So, corrugated iron buried 600 to 700 mil in the ground, the 1/4 inch wire mesh. Up here for the earth, basically for your electric fence, it's going to be running along there eventually. Nice wide cap on these ones to stop the rats if they do get up past this. and onto the top, and the whole rest of it's covered in the new nylon netting, the hail netting. I could actually probably walk across the top of that hail netting. It is so strong. It'll sag a bit for a while, but I reckon I can walk off and within a couple of days be back up to normal again. Good stuff. If you can keep rats off it, or the vermin off it, it's the best stuff for your birds. Except for big parrots, of course. You know, any of the lorikeets, any of your neophemas, I mean, they'll fly from here and hit that end of that net and just bounce back off. One thing I will have issues with is, as you can see, the bush down the back. Look how easy you can see it. So I'm going to have to, when I release birds into there, I'm going to have to brush it up a bit because I'm going to have birds go to smash and bounce off. I mean, they're going to bounce off, yeah, sure. But those are just the flights. This will be solid roof right across to the existing aviary, and obviously divided up through here. And this will be filled up with decomposed granite to allow for a lot more drainage, a lot more dryness. Because with the finches and the soft bills and whatnot, it's good to have a bit of dry stuff. There you go, man. That's it. Any questions?
No, what we're going to do is we'll have supper, but ask any questions in supper because it's you know. But that was a great prezzo.
Thank you.
Too bad we have the AGM at the same time.
Yeah.
You know. But there you go.
Yeah.
But excellent, and thank you so much. Now I've got something to give you on behalf of the society, other than associate membership for a year, and you get the electronic magazine, and it's that.
Thank you very much.
So have that.
Good,
So someone got a photo of me.